Hi everyone and welcome back to the Retro Shack, and we're starting this episode with a quick quiz. Do you recognise this computer? If you're saying it's a Commodore 64, then I'm afraid you're only partly correct. Now, if you've been watching the channel recently, you'll know that I became aware of the ZX Bearmulator project a little while ago, which turns a Raspberry Pi into a fully working Spectrum emulator without the need to have an operating system installed on the Pi in the first place, hence the bare metal tag. The Pi boots up as a Spectrum, and really quickly at that, and you'll also note that I've been tinkering around with a custom PCB to allow putting this emulator installed on a Raspberry Pi 3A+ into an original Spectrum case and hooking it up to the original Speccy keyboard. It's been a really fun project, and while doing my research on that, I became aware of a project to emulate a Commodore 64 using a similar bare metal approach on a Raspberry Pi and with a custom PCB to allow it to fit inside an original C64 case. So I got one. Let's take a look. Here at the Shack, we'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video, my good friends at PCBWay. They'll be helping us out with our PCB fabrication needs and offer a very professional and high quality service for extremely reasonable prices. They can even populate your PCBs for you if you're tired of waving a hot iron around. There's a link to their website in the description where you can check out all of the amazing services they offer. Now back to the show. This kit is based on the BMC64 Project by Randy Rossi, who is in my mind an absolute legend and is also responsible for the hopefully soon to be released VIC-2 Kawari project to create a hardware replacement for the VIC-2 chip in the C64, as the originals are no longer manufactured and are becoming harder to find. There are links in the description to Randy's pages, so please stop by and support these projects as they really deserve it. This kit, when built, acts as an interface between the BMC64 software on the Pi and the real C64 case, keyboard, power supply and joysticks. It's from Fascination in Germany and was just over €70 including postage, and I'm already regretting getting this kit before I even begin putting it together. Not because I think it's going to be a bad product. Quite the opposite. It looks really professionally put together and has set the bar for what a kit of this nature can look like. I feel some pressure to make my own kit look this nice. It comes in a full colour box and has everything you need to complete the project, except a C64 case and keyboard. If you don't have one of those, you can use it with any USB keyboard, but if you're doing that, you don't really need this particular kit, as you could just download the BMC64 software and plonk it on your Pi. But I do have a spare keyboard and case just going begging for this, so we can get the full experience. The manual is impressively detailed and comes with instructions on how to build the kit and the basics of using the BMC64 software, although the BMC64 website does contain a wealth of information that will help you get the best out of this particular emulator. Right, let's put this kit together, see what it's all about, and then hopefully have a play. After having read the entire manual cover to cover, let's heat up the old soldering iron to 350 degrees Celsius and go through the entire build process step by step. We'll start with the parts that are shortest in height, and first out of the gate is this diode that forms part of the power protection circuit when using original C64 power supplies. These tend to get a bit cranky as they get older and can start firing in all sorts of overvoltages, so it's good that this circuit exists here. We're using a 0.6mm Rosin core solder with 2.2% flux, which I find is a really nicely flowing material. On parts with long legs that we've bent to keep in place while soldering, we'll just pop back and reflow the joint once the legs are clipped off to get a nice looking joint. Next up is this mini USB connector, which can be used to power the board if you don't intend to use a C64 power supply. There's a jumper on the PCB that we'll see later which allows you to use either method. To make soldering this a little more straightforward, only two of the really small leads need to be soldered. The ones that provide the 5V and the ground. No data will flow through this port. This resistor pack is next, and there's no polarity to this part, so we can pop it in either way. Next, it's the first of our two capacitors, and this one has no polarity, so we can pop this in either way. We'll also pop in this connector for the Raspberry Pi cooling fan, and it's important that the open edge of this is towards the front of the PCB. We'll splay the legs very slightly and then solder it in. And then clip off the legs. And that's nice and secure, and we soldered in the cooling fan port in exactly the same way. Let's pop in this reset switch. There's only one way it'll fit to the board, just needs a bit of a wiggle and it clips straight in. Next up, it's the USB ports, and there are two of these. Again, there's only one way they can fit on the board, so just a gentle push and they're in. I'll tape these down so they don't move about while we solder the first pins. Exactly the same process for the second USB port. Now, unless you've got spares lying around, it's time to be careful, because you get one header and you need to split it into a 3 and 2 2s, so be careful with those old clippers. The 3-pin header is for the power supply jumper, and this 2-pin header is for the case power LED. Let's get those soldered in too. Sometimes it's easier to just solder one of these pins, then put some pressure on the part, melt the solder, and the part will just snap into place. Then you can solder the other joints. The other 2-pin header lives down here, and from here we'll run wires to the Pi itself. And we'll pop this little jumper on before I lose it. Next up, we have a couple of fuse holders, and these have a little tab, which means you have to orient these the right way so the fuse will fit. Might seem obvious, but easily overlooked, so best to mention it. On these parts, it's always good to check that the one leg you've soldered so far has put the part flush with the board before soldering the rest. And then we just pop in the fuse. And there's another one down at the bottom. In goes the first of the joystick ports. These only fit in one way, but there are lots of pins and they're very delicate, so do be careful when pushing this one home. Again, just solder one part so you can make sure it's flush with the board, especially as these have to fit in to a special port covering on the side of the unit. Sockets such as these take a lot of abuse over the years, so please make sure you put plenty of solder in to hold them in place. And here's the second joystick port fitted in exactly the same way. Time for the second of our two capacitors, and this one does have a polarity, so you need to make sure that the long leg, which is the plus, goes into the hole with the plus on it. This thyristor needs to be mounted so that the silver side is pointing away from the power socket. Now, of course, we need a switch to turn the power on and off, and that goes in here. And last but not least on this PCB is the socket to accept a standard Commodore 64 power supply input. And with that in, from the side you could almost be forgiven for thinking it's an actual Commodore 64 mainboard. But of course it isn't. It's going to be a Raspberry Pi based solution, and for that we need to put in this keyboard header and of course a header to attach the Raspberry Pi itself. There, done, and not a bad job if I do say so myself. It's a really nice looking kit. Everything seems nicely proportioned, nicely laid out, and it's just crying out now to get that Raspberry Pi installed. So let's do that. Now, not every piece of functionality in the BMC64 is exposed through the GPIO pins, so there are a couple of cables we need to solder directly to the Pi itself, and they're on the PP2 and the run pads on the board. And while all our soldering is done, we still do need to fit this fan, but it's just a few nuts and bolts and that'll be nice and secure. These nuts are pretty fiddly and quite annoying, but they got there in the end. I suggest tightening these up with a pair of pliers and a screwdriver so they're nice and tight. You don't want those falling off and potentially causing short circuits. We'll plug in the power lead for the fan, fit these standoffs on the Raspberry Pi so it fits flush on the board, and then push it into place. Remember those wires from Run and PP2 on the Raspberry Pi? Well, we need to route those through to their headers on the PCB. They're clearly marked and you can't really go wrong. And that, my friends, is that. There's a bit of cable management to do, and these screws on the connectors actually don't fit with the port cover for the C64, so we need to replace those with these plastic replacements. We'll connect the Pi's USB port to the board with this extension cable, that bit of cable management we talked about, and pop in the SD card. And then, my friends, we are done. Just need to make sure that the power selection is set to the C64 PSU. Here's that port cover I printed, because I didn't have one on my spare keyboard in case. And here's the board sitting in situ. And it's all held in by this one little screw. Well, time to close the lid and see if this thing actually works. Now, to do that, we're going to need to firstly plug in the HDMI cable into the back of the unit. Then we'll plug in our joystick. And lastly, we'll plug in our power supply. Okay, everyone, deep breath, time to power it on. Well, that's a relief, and I'm always pleased when a project like this works first time. I don't know why, I always expect there'll be something wrong and I'm going to spend hours trying to find the problem. Anyway, The Commodore key and F7 brings up the menu, and hopefully the joystick will work. Yes, that works as well. That's good. So the keyboard and the joystick are working fine. So what can we actually do with this thing? Well, one of the features that I like about Vice is that you can turn on CRT scan lines, and even more than that, you can put a curvature on the screen. So let's pop in and have a go at that. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that looks pretty darn good. It's a very good facsimile of an actual CRT screen, and whilst it might not be for everyone, it's there for the purists if that's the way you prefer to enjoy your games. BMC64, being based on Vice, supports up to 4 virtual 1541 disk drives and allows you to attach different images to each drive. Not only that, the machine also makes all the drive sounds, but of course you can turn these off if this isn't to your liking. Let's load up Defender of the Crown and just listen to how accurate and nostalgic this sounds. And that just feels really nice. BMC64 also has some really cool features that you might expect to only see on some of the Ultimate series of cartridges or the Ultimate 64 machines, such as dual SID support. And that gives you stereo SIDs of, if you want, 2 different varieties. And that sounds really, really nice too. Anyway, there's so much you can do with BMC64 and of course the Vice emulator it's ported from that I'm not going to cover all of that here. If you want to have a mess around with BMC64, I suggest you download it and have a play on your own Pi, or download Vice and have a play with that. But I'm sure you'll agree that adding in this kit from Fascination makes for a really sympathetic retro system that wouldn't offend too many C64 owners. And apart from the rear edge connectors being missing, there's nothing on the 5 other faces to indicate this isn't anything other than a stock C64. I hope you've enjoyed putting this together with me, and if you do decide to have a go at one of these, please let me know how you get on. It's certainly given me a good few ideas for my own PCB kit. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of new content. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a patron, or you could simply buy us a coffee. Links to both are on the banner on the main channel page. If you'd like to donate something to the Shack, drop us an email. Please leave your comments below, as we always love to read them, and until next time in the Retro Shack, it's goodbye from me.